Who will be the number one newcomer, the highest impact newcomer for the Georgia Bulldogs? Whether that be one of the transfer portal guys, which Georgia has a few of them, they think are going to make an impact, and I'm going to discuss them. Or it will be a freshman, right? ESPN released their list. The top 25 teams. Who's going to be their number one newcomer in 2024? Who's going to have the biggest impact out of all of the new players on that roster? For Georgia, ESPN tabs Trevor Etienne, running back. Obvious? Maybe. That probably would be my pick as well as to who was going to have the highest impact, and we'll get into that. Some of their other guys, obvious. If you look at who Notre Dame's is, who Alabama's is, who Texas's is, right? You go through the list, and a lot of them are pretty obvious. What's interesting is a lot of them of these top teams have a transfer guy where they're going to be really important for that football team. Like it's kind of like free agency in a way, and I know people hate that, and I don't love it either, but it's kind of like football free agency or basketball free agency or baseball free agency. Go and get that guy that's going to immediately impact and make this next team better, right? Because freshmen, you're getting them for longevity, you're getting them for building blocks, unless they happen to come in and win a job. But transfers, more often than not, you want them to come in and make an immediate impact. I think that Trevor Etienne will do that for Georgia. I thought he showed flashes at GA, handful of catches, some good run after the catch, a few carries, right? He only had 4 carries, only ended up with 24-ish yards, 18-ish yards. He had the one longer run that was explosive, that was around 18 to 20 yards. And, for the rest of it, Georgia's run game was kind of shut down at GA outside of a couple of big runs, right? It was all 1-2 yard gains. There weren't a lot of 4, 5, 6 yard kind of churn it out type of football plays. Etienne will be Georgia's RB1. Everything that we have seen says that. Everything points to that. The fact that they went out there and got him is the number one reason. The fact that they went out there and got him. 2, look at the rest of the running back room. It would have been Branson Robinson, but we haven't seen him since the national championship against TCU. 3, I think he's just the best guy, right? He's got the most experience in this conference, and he is different. That is a direct quote from Kirby Smart. This guy is just different than what we've had. What have you had? Dejan Edwards, Kendall Milton. You've had some Kenny McIntosh. The guy that ultimately is going to be the highest impact running back for Georgia that gets forgotten is going to be Kenny McIntosh, a guy that was the starting running back on the 22 team, a rotational guy the couple of years before that. Etienne can have a bigger year than Kenny did in 2022 when he had 1,300 yards from scrimmage. 829 on the ground, 10 touchdowns. Big deal. Kenny McIntosh was the third leading receiver with 500 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? 1,300 scrimmage yards. Can Etienne have a season like that? Can he have a 1,000 and a 300? Can he have a 1,200 and a 100? Can he have that type of season where he's amassing 10-plus touchdowns? He's amassing over 1,000 yards on the ground or combined through the air and on the ground? Yes. It's interesting looking at Georgia's running numbers over the last 3 years because this true, right, 2017 happened, and Georgia's been a contender pretty much this whole time, but a contender in the way where every single person is taking you seriously and you're projected to win, right, starts in 2021 when they won the national championship. That was a turning point for this program, was during that season. They elevated another step, right? It was already a big-time contender, elevated another step in 2021. So just looking at the running numbers from the last 3 seasons where Georgia won 2 national championships, fell short a year ago, doesn't even make the playoffs. It's interesting to look at, and how will Etienne impact those numbers relative to who they have, right? Because I think he is going to be the RB1. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about Trevor Etienne and the impact I think he will have on Georgia. I don't think he will be the only high-impact performer that's a newcomer for Georgia. I do think that those receivers can help out. I think that Xavier McLeod on the defensive line can help out a lot. Freshman-wise, I don't think any freshman's going to make a big impact, but we can talk about it. Running back, ironically, is kind of the spot that I've pointed to this whole time where I think that maybe that position that's where the freshmen will shine. Because I just linebacker, they have so many of them. Defensive backs, you don't want you don't want a freshman defensive back out there for the most part. And I don't think that that's going to happen super often, right? You might get Nellis Robinson or KJ Bolden rotating in there, right, as a reserve. But Etienne should be the highest impact Georgia player that is new to this roster. So in 2021, these numbers, I didn't have an expectation really. I thought that the rushing numbers would have been like, in 2021, they only ran for 29 touchdowns. In 2022, and that's when Georgia had a more stable running back room, right? Well, they did. They had Zamir White and James Cook and McIntosh and Milton and Edwards, along with Stetson Bennett's legs. Then you get to 2022, 44 rushing touchdowns. Well, 10 of them come from Stetson Bennett. 10 of them come from Kenny McIntosh. 7 of them come from Daijun Edwards. 8 of them come from Kendall Milton. 3 from Branson Robinson. 2 Ladd McConkey. 3 Brock Bowers. Cash Jones had 1, right? 44 rushing touchdowns among all those guys. And then you get to 2023, and they almost hit 40 again. They hit 40. They almost had the same production on the ground with slightly more volume through the air with Carson Beck. But it's touchdown-wise, it's between Daijun Edwards and Kendall Milton, and they were very good. And that's kind of the part that I do think is getting overlooked a little bit. Kendall Milton and Daijun Edwards were good running backs, right? They combined for over, I'm trying to do the math, but close to 6 yards a carry. Looks like about 5.9 between the two of them. I'm adding their stats together. Close to 6 yards a carry, over 1,500, 1,600 yards, and 27 rushing touchdowns. It's a Heisman winner. All right, when you add them together, I don't think that Trevor Etienne's going to get 300 carries. Just because Georgia doesn't play like that anymore. And they really haven't. Dating back to Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel, those guys were outliers. Todd Gurley, they were the offense. Trevor Etienne's not going to have to be the offense, and that's why it's going to be easy for him to be an impact guy. Comparing him to Swift, this is what ESPN said about him, and then I want to move on. Real quick, this is what ESPN said about him. And you know what? There you go. Georgia's recipe for success under Kirby Smart has been strong running game, blah, blah, blah. Then you scroll down a little bit. They mentioned that part there about DeAndre Swift when adding. I don't know why I just forgot how to read. Adding Etienne similar to when DeAndre Swift was in Georgia's backfield. And the thing that I thought was interesting about that was the fact that Kirby accepted that comparison. I've already mentioned it a few times, but Swift to Etienne, and like what I said again, if he is DeAndre Swift, yes, it's a no-brainer. He's the biggest impact freshman or newcomer. I think Kobe Young will be an impact guy. I think Benjamin Urasek will be an impact guy. I think that they're just both going to be out there. I think Kobe Young is going to get a few touchdowns. All right, he's not going to have as many yards as Dominic Lovett, might not have as many yards as Dylan Bell, but I do think Kobe Young is going to have some touchdowns. This is a guy that they brought in to be a red zone target, a guy to be a jump ball target, a guy to add another level of just a different element to their offense, something that they didn't have featured and they didn't have completely featured with the guys they had beforehand. You had a good red zone target that they didn't use that much in Darnell Washington, and you had Brock Bowers. And now you have Kobe Young. But I think his role will be a little bit more catered to that thing. No, I'm not limiting Kobe Young's game to, you're just a jump ball guy. But what I'm saying is I think that they will cater his role out a little bit more. Brock Bowers was an all-around guy. Darnell Washington was a blocker. Kobe Young, not even a tight end, right? He's just kind of their next guy that I think just throw up and go get it. Adds another piece for Carson Beck. He already likes to throw it up a little bit. He already likes to throw some risky passes here and there. He knows he can get away with stuff because he's got enough arm talent. I think Kobe Young makes that life easier. Benjamin Urasek, I'm excited to see in fall camp what kind of impact he'll have. Georgia loves to run that 12 personnel. They love having two tight ends out there. And Benjamin Urasek is going to be the one that's out there as a pass catcher for the most part. All of them are capable of doing that between Oscar Duplass and Lucky and all those guys. Jaden Riddell, another guy. Wait. It will happen. That guy's going to be really good when he gets his turn as Georgia's starting tight end. You look through like this list, Ohio State Buckeyes, Caleb Downs. Oregon Ducks, Dylan Gabriel. Texas Longhorns, Isaiah Bond. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, I don't even know what I'm saying the mascots, but Riley Leonard there as well at quarterback. For Georgia and the rest of its top 5 teams, it's obvious who their number one impact. It's top 6. Walter Nolan. With Missouri is when it starts getting a little more than Penn State and Alabama, and you're moving on to that next tier. Doesn't seem like they have as many big impact transfers, but all of the top teams this year do. Trevor Etienne just happens to be Georgia's biggest one. I agree with ESPN. Thanks for watching.